Welcome to the 21st Men, where we're redefining masculinity through modern manhood. My name is Vince, the host, and we have a question from Instagram that the whole cast and guests are going to answer today. We've got Luis, Brandon, Ahmad, Christian, this guy, and Justin. You know, right now I can't give him a name because he's over here with these cowboy boots on. Yeah. Anyway, that's Rashad. So we had a question come into Instagram. This episode is purely on this question and how we deal with it as men and going forward from that. So the question, and I'm going to read it from my Instagram so you guys understand what was said. How does a man deal with a loved one cheating on them? And in this context, it's a significant other. Walked into the room, found an old girl on top of another man. You know, they were doing some things. And he's hurt by it. And he wants to really kind of understand how he should move forward and what we all think about how we would handle that situation.
Yeah, that's such a tough situation. You know, and I think, you know, the feelings that you would get, I think it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female that's spectating, you know, that I think it's hurtful no matter who you are, right? And I think, you know, I'm going to be honest, it's never right to cheat, right? So, but I think, you know, the first thing he's got to identify, you know, like, obviously the base of it is that your pride is hurt, right? You know, emotionally you're obviously hurt, but there's a lot of pride. Because as men, you know, we carry a lot of pride. We walk around, we feel like, oh, you know, it goes back to primal, survival of the fittest, right? We feel like we are the fittest mate to whoever we're dating, right? So when they step out of line, we feel like, oh, well, maybe we're not the most suitable candidate. And it really hurts that part of you, right? Obviously, emotionally, it really hurts because it's a separation, right? When you're with somebody, whether married or just dating, you're creating a connection with them, right? And the second that someone is unfaithful, that creates a sense of separation, and that's like the most painful thing you can have. You know, I think about it in the context of, you know, just, I mean, I take it back to the Bible, biblically, right? The worst thing that can ever happen is having an eternal separation from God, right? So I guess here on earth, having a separation from your spouse, or if it was your girlfriend or whatever, as soon as it becomes physical with somebody else, that's a very clear, defined line. Like, we are separated right now, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. Everything about it is separated. So that's where the hurt really comes from. You know,
I think there's a difference between a physical connection with a woman, the physical connection, and a mental and emotional connection with another man. I'm not excusing cheating, but if it's a drunk night and something stupid happens, there's a possible chance for forgiveness. But if there's a long-term affair and emotions are getting into it, I think that's a clear indication that you are in a definite separation state.
Right.
And that's dependent upon the relationship itself. And for women, I really think there's only two aspects. It's either you as the man do not fulfill certain aspects of the relationship because it's a two-way street, or it's a part of her lifestyle choice that she's made preemptive to you guys getting in the relationship in the first place, and you should have had the instincts to know whether to get in that relationship at all to begin with. I don't know if there's other situations that could really factor in that. It's either kind of her DNA style, or it's something that disconnected between the relationships.
So are you saying that in that situation, and just ask for clarification,
Sure.
Are you saying that somehow it was something he did or didn't do that caused him to cheat if it wasn't a drunk situation?
Her?
Him.
You said
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that. I think women will provide signs or argue or give you a reason to go, hey, this is something you're lacking in the relationship, whether it's communication, whether it's sexual intimacy, whether it's relationship building, whether it's chores or being there for the children. There's something that's missing. And so she had to go find that from somewhere else at some point in time. Or, like I said before, sometimes it's something that's out of your control. And it might just be the personality of that individual, right? We all get to that.
Right.
I do think we need to take ownership sometimes and go, what did we lose as our fault as a man bringing towards the relationship itself, you know?
I agree with that wholeheartedly, because it stops you from being a perpetual victim. It gives you the power back.
Absolutely.
Because once you look within first and see, okay, what did I do to cause said behavior? Not saying said behavior is right, not saying you have to put up with that behavior, but what can I do to rectify this so it doesn't happen in a future relationship? You know, and if you decide to take that person back, okay, where was I lacking so I can make sure that this doesn't happen again, if that's the road you want to take.
I believe Christian is talking about something that's true, but there's so much more that's attached to that truth.
Correct.
And when you look at it as a whole, when you are deciding to get into anything, let's say a contract, and you decide not to read certain parts of the fine print and still sign, you're accepting whatever it is that's in that. Now, here's a tough part about with linking up with another person. There will always be fine print that you did not read.
Because there's always gonna be a little crazy.
You ignore red flags.
Yeah, it's not just ignore red flags. A lot of people don't even understand themselves. Yeah. And so when you're getting into something, and this is why most Christians, they'll tell you God has to be the center, because when you're getting into it, you know that God is the perfect mediator, the fixer. God's the one who will bring all of the things that are problems to light, and then you guys can work through it. Right. But when you don't have the creator as the center, then best believe you never know what's going to happen. You really don't know what's going to happen for sure. And so when I hear him say that, I love the fact that what both of you said, kind of putting the responsibility on yourself. Because what are you doing? What are you doing to make sure that before you make this official, that you know as much as you need to know? In my opinion, the only things you really need to know before you get into it, just speaking from the perspective of a Christian man, is do you love God, do you love yourself, and do you love people?
The one thing that's unexcusable is the action that was committed. So whether it was predicated based off of a lack of, intentionality on the significant other, fulfilling needs, desires, wants, that's a separate set of issues. That is an issue, obviously, but the action itself, that's an issue on the person who stepped out. That's where they need to reflect is, what caused me personally to step out, in a physical manner, right? And sometimes, there are things that lack. You said, well, I'm not sure, there's communication for these things. It's a lack. Well, sometimes the problem is the communication, right? So they feel like, oh, I didn't feel comfortable. So the question is never, it's like an entrepreneurship, right? The question is not, why did, they went to that company because they're paying them more. Well, the question is, why did they start looking? That's the problem. Why did they start looking to get paid more? Because they were unfulfilled in some way. So I do agree with you on that.
I'll bring up this point as well, and I don't know if this is popular belief, but it also depends on the lens in which you look through it. Sometimes you start a relationship and you're one person, and by the end of the relationship, you're another person because you've grown and that person's grown as well. So it's actually a benefit that the relationship has to end at some point, because if it continued going further, it would have been destructive. And I know at the moment it feels so hurtful and deceitful, but give it some time and you go, man, I'm glad to be out of that relationship because it wasn't worth my time. And so I think you have to look at it that lens. Sometimes you go, you know what, man? Maybe this is a blessing in disguise, like a silver lining.
Right.
Oh yeah, one of the things too is that too many times, especially young men commit way too early before they realize their value and who they really are.
I agree.
Because you don't know. You're 22. You don't know who you're going to become. You don't know. So you commit to someone, and now you're 32 and you're going through all types of hell, and you have no answers. That's because you didn't know who this person was going to be. And no, you didn't know who you were going to become. And so now you're, especially if you're married, now you're headed for a divorce.
You got children in the mix.
And you got children in the mix because you don't, number one, you don't know yourself, and then you definitely don't know each other.
It's funny that you say that because, somebody likes to talk about order up in this piece, you know what I'm saying? So that's important. I think that's really important, like order in the way that you take on things. Intent is very important, and understanding what do you want from this. I cannot tell you how many men I've seen get into something so quickly. Oh, I just like her. I just want to date her. You know what I mean? Or this and the other. And I'm like, but where's it going to end up?
With that scenario of him catching that his significant other cheating, how willing would you be to forgive if that was in your current situation with your spouses?
Well, did I kill the guy that was
Am I in jail?
Yeah.
How much forgiveness are you going to give? Are you going to be willing to accept your significant other back? How much effort is it going to be? Trust?
Well, I think forgiveness and accepting someone back, they're separate. Forgiveness is for you.
That's good. Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, if you don't forgive, you're hurting yourself more than you're hurting anyone else. And so, but I think accepting, like you're saying, someone back is actually based on, at the end of the day, purpose. Like, if unfortunately, in many ways, marriage is like having a business partner.
Hey, bruh.
And so, but at the same,
I was literally just talking about that.
At the same time, it's relational. So it's like you want to be connected with the person because you care about them at the same time. But at the same time as well, you guys are going into business together. Because what happens to that person happens to you. What happens to you happens to that person. There's certain insurance policies that I can write up on someone, a business owner, to where as co-partners, if something happens to their partner, they're going to actually, when that partner loses out on money, insurance will pay that company based off of that partner's earnings. And so that the partner is not hurt. So it's important to understand that when you're going into something, it's business is at the same time, because what happens to you happens to that person. What happens to that person happens to you.
Now, one thing I will say, kind of along those lines is for me personally, like I agree with love is not an emotion, it's an action. But for me, I'd prefer you to trust me and respect me than to really love me. And I say that because, like 50 Cent said in Get Rich or Die Trying, show no love, love will get you killed. I've seen people do despicable things to people that they love.
9 times.
Yeah. I've seen people do despicable things to people that they say they love. But I don't really see that with people they ultimately respect. They don't do certain things.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with respect to that, and you're talking about running a business and owning a business, somebody you're currently going through with the 14 and trying to build that brand and stuff like that, would you mirror how you build a brand to how you would build a relationship?
Personally, yes and no. I say yes simply because the way that I hope to build out my business and hope to build out my brand, I want to do it on intentionality. I want to have something. I want to have a purpose in mind, and then I want to work towards that purpose, what that greater goal is. And so, in the sense of a relationship, if I think I'm going to be in a relationship with a young lady, and I plan to marry her, there's going to be certain things that until we finally get to that step. All right, these are the intentional steps that we're going to take to get there.
So I'm going to give an educator's perspective as usual, as you guys probably sick of this by now. But in a relationship process, or in any process as an educator or as an entrepreneur, you have to do reflections and reviews, and you should reflect on the relationship and yourself daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and reflect the goals. See if you're heading in the right direction. Communicate effectively. It will prevent cheating from happening. Not entirely, but you'll at least lower the percentage of it occurring if you're communicating and reflecting. Hey, was my actions okay today? Did I do the right things? Did she do the right things? And call them out on it if they didn't do the right things today. You should call yourself out on those things as well. The reflection, I think, is very key in a lot of relationships.
Okay, well, let's look at it from that perspective of a woman. Okay, so I was asked based on my characteristics that I would like in a woman or whatever. Oh, do you want a docile woman? I'm like, what do you want, a docile man? Like, I mean, in certain situations, the idea of leading is important, intent is important, but the way she asked me that, it was like, no, but I want a woman who trusts in my leadership to allow me to lead. I didn't say, because at the end of the day, a leader has to be okay. A leader has to have a following, right, in order to be a leader. But my biggest thing is like trusting me. And I think in any situation in cheating, somewhere trust was broken on both sides of the spectrum. Because loyalty cannot be there without that trust. And I think that trust was gone, so that loyalty was gone. And that's why she stepped out. Now, however, I do know a little bit more context. I believe she was drunk in that situation. And he wants to know whether or not he should take her back in that situation. And in that, his name's Ryan. I think that's personal. And I think based on everything that everybody has said, I think, is it in that plan? Is it in that monthly, weekly, daily review? Is she building to your empire? I look at it as this: 30% love, the rest is my empire. And you have to be able to willingly go with me. For instance, I personally will never legally marry in the United States of America. Personally will never.
Not happening.
I'm not doing it.
It's a despicable contract.
I will not ever do it. But I will get married in front of my peers. I will wear a ring. And I will call her my wife. and I will take that action and intent
That's
for her being
personal.
a wife.
Why were you both so adamant on not getting?
Let me tell you why. I'm an entrepreneur, and I have multiple hands and multiple pots, and I want to own a business. I want to own a business and build an empire. If I were to sign contracts and be legally married in the United States, her name would have to go on every single thing as well.
You know, one of the things that I would, kind of challenge is, is that really a true partnership, right? So if you were to fail, would you expect her to help you?
Yes.
But if you were to succeed, she can't have it.
No, she can have as much as.
But not legally.
No, because we'll have prenups. We'll have separate civil contracts that we will set the terms for, not the United States of America.
P-word.
I appreciate that. I mean, everything that we talked about today really basically just kind of reemphasizes the fact that, first off, it is a personal decision. I think that what he does from here out will be something that he will do. What he has to take into account, everything that he asked for, intent, goals. Who does he really like to kind of mirror off on? But the biggest thing is really kind of figuring out, what does he want at the end, and does she help fulfill that? And I think that's important too. Unless I took the wrong things from this, let me know.
My main thing is, what do they want?
Right.
Yeah.
What do you
How
talk?
do they
Say
fulfill it
it.
together?
I mean, there's a lot of things that I think a lot of us say, and I'll just really, obviously everything's just really personal opinion, right? But I think, I do agree with Rashad. It is a covenant, right? Love is a choice. You choose to love somebody, right? And that's through thick and thin, just like building a company. Like, you choose to continue to get up. I mean, I get up at 4:27 every single morning. I choose to get up. Right? I don't have to get up. I got up this morning and it's
7 in the morning.
the Saturdays, Sundays, I choose to do it. Right? But what I think is, like infidelity, that's kind of a touchy subject, and that's really hard to kind of go through.
That's why I think it's personal.
But I think if let's say I built a huge giant company, right? Jeff Bezos from Amazon, if you guys check that, right? So he built $1 billion, billions of dollars, right? Well, I mean, they ended up getting divorced and she takes half of the company.
Oh, $4 billion.
And let's say that happens to any of us, I'm like, oh, well, she doesn't deserve it because she cheated on me. Well, the reality is, in the moment, I mean, there is a hierarchy, right? So, like, let's say that it's you work and she stays home with the kids. The roles had to play out in the puzzle piece for the bigger picture to work.
I agree.
She had to take care of the home so you could go and work in.
So there's no empire.
Yeah, they're helpmate.
Period.
The Bible calls them a helpmate,
I agree.
right?
Yeah.
So if they're a helpmate, I mean, you have to work together to accomplish that, right? So I don't think it's as political as we're all kind of like alluding to, like, oh, it's a political transaction, and I actually have been divorced. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are challenging and they're super frustrating and difficult, and we didn't build anything together. So I think that's the caveat, is there was nothing that we built together, and it wasn't because I wasn't good or because she wasn't good. It's just the pieces have to fit in order to build, and the pieces were just disruptive. And even though I may have a mind of an entrepreneur or I may have a desire, they have to fit in order to move forward, and we just couldn't. And I met Tia, and we're married, and 3 kids later, we're building companies, and we're trying to do the best. And if Tia decided tomorrow she wanted to leave me, I mean, I try to find out who she's talking about, though. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But she deserves it. She deserves it. And honestly, I think the role that she's played in my life, and this is just me, is more valuable than the role that I've played. In the context of, she's really nurtured her kids. She's sacrificed herself to work in corporate America and try to juggle being a mom and then working and then trying to build a company with me. So I think she was designed truly as a helpmate, not a contractual partner. That if it doesn't work out, then let's get really legal. But I do think that you do need to safeguard yourself. If you're an NFL mega millionaire going into it, and you're like 80, and you're meeting 27-year-old Holly, you probably should get a prenup.
Yeah.
I look at prenups a little different, though. Like, I don't look at them as that perspective, because I'm not getting, and I won't ever get legally married by the United States. I still should have something there that gives her cushion as well as myself, and understanding that. Because at the end of the day,
common law, know the laws in every state for common law marriage.
Right.
Because if you stay together for X amount of years, I think it's
Live
7
together,
years.
yeah, 7.
Yeah, you live together. You by law.
Not
Have
here in
all
Florida.
of the same.
I don't think there's common law
It's
here
not
in
in
Florida.
Florida. No.
So it's not
Not in
here.
Florida.
No, but you are considered a domestic partner. So
Yeah.
So with that being said, what you said, which I agree with, I think there should be there's a partnership, and I think we can look at it from a business perspective, a Christian's perspective, a more of an educational perspective. But at the end of the day, two people have entered into something. Y'all both agreed where y'all were at in the beginning when y'all first got there. Whether one is more successful or not, or they're on equal playing fields or whatever, you knew what you were getting into. That means whatever y'all did together, regardless of who made a mistake in the moment to do whatever they did. And at the end of the day, I think that should be looked at from a logical standpoint to remove those emotions, because most people who get divorced and they want, oh, he took all my money, or you're emotionally talking, brother. But without all that situations, like you said, you wouldn't have what you got.
I mean, everybody loves weddings. Who doesn't like going to weddings?
Oh, bro, I'm the one in my relationship that I'm about to. I'm that guy. I'm gonna put that wedding on, bro. I think it's a very personal decision, and we have to understand what we want out of it, what we don't want out of it. How we view things, and again, Ryan, it's very personal. But I know for me, and for everybody here, we hope that you got something from this. We hope that you get, we're able to make a decision on that and where to move forward and how you want to look at things in your relationship, because again, it is personal.
Yeah.
But going forward here, make sure you subscribe, follow Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube is where we air all the episodes fully. But I also want to talk about the second season coming in April. Majority of the cast will remain. However, we will talk about more personal, more like secluded stuff, like mental health. We're going to talk about what is a man when it comes to your mental. How do we flourish? How do we do stuff so we're going to really talk about more concreted topics rather than broad, because this season was about building, and now we have a foundation, and we're going to move forward in that. Join us in the new season, new year, when we focus on building the 4 pillars of what modern manhood is. So stay tuned. Thanks.